Hello, again, hi. I just finished my first 2 weeks of medical school, and it was good. Ish. It was fine. It was good. I think it was good. It was fine, and it can only get better. It's no secret that medical school is taxing and difficult and stressful, and I just finished my first exam, so I thought I'd just make a video to sort of check in and see how I'm doing while it's still just fresh on my mind and everything's still there. How's my hair? It's wet. It's still wet. I just took a shower. Please ignore that. This is going to be a little less structured than my other videos because I'm still really exhausted and I have a lot to do, and weirdly enough, the content from school doesn't stop just because I want to take a break and film a video. Finding time to do this has been difficult. My camera isn't working, so I have a whole new setup. I'm using my phone, and hopefully that works fine. I don't know how the iPhone camera will work, so we're gonna find out. Anyways, I just kind of want to go through a general overview of the week, and then a little bit more into what worked for me, and then what didn't work for me, and how sustainable everything is. So yeah, thank you for watching. I think my general experience is that even though it was extremely difficult and very fast-paced, it was somewhat manageable. I found that even though I was spending most of my time studying or taking practice questions or going to class, I still had my time for myself and to take breaks. Sometimes I got a little too focused and forgot to take breaks for a few hours, but for the most part, I took my breaks. I would normally try to have like an hour of really focused study or work and then take like 10 to 30 minutes to get up and move or walk or stretch or just something like that. I pretty much did the Pomodoro technique, even though I've been a long time hater of the Pomodoro technique because it's never really worked for me. I think just having longer sessions that I can actually focus in helped a lot, because normally I would do like 25-5, and it's like I can't even focus 15 minutes in, so I don't know. I'm really fortunate that I love my school's campus and there's nature around, and it's a really beautiful campus because it helps to just take a break from everything and just be able to not focus for a little bit and appreciate just the environment that I'm in and like grass. I think I've spent more time in the past 2 weeks staring at my iPad screen than I have in my entire life. So just being able to like go outside and walk around and see the sun was a very, very refreshing experience. My other very general overview is that I love my school's resources. Before classes officially started, we had a pretty long orientation, and they were really hammering those resources in, and I am glad that they did. The resources at my school are incredible. One thing I've noticed just by interacting with said resources that I'll get to in a little bit, and the faculty, is that everybody seems to really care about the students, which is new to me. It's a pretty small class size and smaller campus than like an undergraduate university, so having faculty that truly seem like they want to be there and care about the students is very, very nice. And I think that showing your students that faculty do really care is very important in medical school, because medical school is hard and stressful. I mean, I've been trying to enjoy it as much as I can, but I'm not gonna lie, I have been struggling immensely as well. And this might sound weird, but I think I'm struggling more with everything outside of the content and outside of medical school than I am with the actual like studying itself. What is going on with my hair? Like, I'm managing the content fine, I'm doing good during all my study sessions, but the other day I broke down in my laundry room because I had to put a fitted sheet back on my bed, and I really didn't want to do that. It's weird because it's just the smallest things are more overwhelming than you would expect. And there are things truly about medical school that I am loving, as hard as it is, so I'm very glad, even more so, that they have the resources there just in case you are struggling, because I think everybody will at some point. Like I said, I am struggling a little bit, kind of a lot sometimes, but I am slowly finding ways to manage everything better. I'm also really relieved that I do genuinely like being on campus. I know I mentioned that I love going outside after studying, but I do really like just the campus in general and the buildings. We have pretty affordable food options if you want to get like lunch after class. There's free fountain drinks if you want it. There's a whole floor dedicated to just socializing and relaxing. There's a very decently sized gym, and there are even massage chairs on like the second floor of that kind of socializing building. And I've used the massage chairs more than I'd care to admit, just because after sitting, leaning forward the whole time and taking notes, my shoulders hurt, which is something that's new. There are also like study rooms and quiet spaces in just about every building I've been to, which is really good if you just want to go somewhere new and study. In the past, especially during undergrad, I used to love going to coffee shops, probably more than I could have afforded at the time, and working just to get away from like my apartment and campus and just find a new place to work. And if you don't know me, which most of you probably do know me if you're watching this, I'm a really big coffee studier. I love just going to a coffee shop and getting a drink while I work. It's just calming, and I think a lot of people are like that, but me, I'm special. I mean, I even made my own coffee bar at my apartment because I just like making drinks and I find it therapeutic at this point. And since I've been in medical school at my campus, I literally haven't gone out once at any coffee shop. I haven't gone out to a library or somewhere else to work. I just prefer going to campus or working in my apartment. And to me, that's just a great sign. I mean, I'm thrilled that I get to go there, and I love all the faculty and I love all the resources. So I think that's a very good sign compared to what it could have been, because I've definitely heard horror stories from medical school students, and I'm glad that I'm not experiencing that. One last general thing I wanted to talk about before I get into specifics, but my peers are also really great. I mean, every single person I've talked to is very nice, very respectful. They give you your space if you want it. They offer to study with you if you want it. And it seems like everybody is getting along, whether they found their place or not. I personally don't feel like I've really fit in or found my niche yet, but I do love every single person that I've met so far. And I think that's a great thing to have, just because the whole campus, the faculty, the students, it just feels like a good place to be. Okay, so now that I've gone over some very brief general thoughts and rants, I want to go over some specifics of what worked for me in the first 2 weeks and leading up to the first exam. I don't remember if I alluded to it before, but I am happy with how I performed on the first exam, so that's great. Nope. I didn't realize just how important the exams were until 3 or 4 days before the first exam. The residency placement, counselors came in and warned us all that if we failed anything, we could kiss the competitive residencies goodbye, and goodbye to surgery, goodbye to dermatology. So I'm very relieved and very happy and just very at peace with how I performed, and that I can let go of all that stress for now. I still have another exam in a week and a half. It'll be fine. Going into that first exam, though, was probably the most stressed I've ever been about something. I mean, my stomach was so uneasy that I almost threw up brushing my teeth, and I was just shaking, and the drive over was really bad. And I can just still feel it. It was not fun at all. Okay, so what worked? Well, I said it before, and I'm just gonna highlight it again. Take your breaks. It is not sustainable to sit there for 6 to 8 hours without taking a break. You're going to burn out. Your brain is going to stop working. And I think I do know some people who tried that and it just didn't work. And besides taking breaks, but sort of going along with taking breaks, try to find one thing in the day that brings you joy and makes you happy. And that can look very different for everybody. I mean, I remember one day we had 4 hours of lectures in the mornings, and I was so brain dead at the end of it that I decided to just go to our cafeteria and order a meal and watch a YouTube video for an hour and just turn my brain completely off. I think I had the dark noise or brown noise, whatever Apple has, in my earbuds, just so that if anybody talked to me, I just wouldn't even hear them. I just turned my brain off for a whole hour, and it was amazing. Is the hair getting better? All right, that's fine. Some days it was just coming home and making a really nice meal for myself. Last weekend I went to get brunch because my parents recommended a really, really good place, and I had an amazing time. And then I got to take the public transport back to this local place that had this amazing focaccia bread, and I brought that home and I baked it for dinner, and it was amazing. I had a great time. Any way that you can show yourself that you matter and meet your wants and needs is great. Self-care looks different for everybody. Mine is normally with food, clearly, but yours can be reading or some other hobby that you have. I named one hobby, reading. Another thing that really worked is something very new to me, and that's allowing myself to feel emotions and not bottle it up. For me, like I said before, the hardest part of medical school is everything outside of medical school and just balancing everything like groceries and exercise and socializing and making sure I'm there for other people. And normally in the past, I would sacrifice my own mentality or maybe bottle things up or not talk about it if I needed to focus on others first. And I can proudly say that I have not been doing that. I've been very, very selfish for the past 2 weeks, and I've been taking care of myself first, and I think that's been helping immensely. And again, that can look like a lot, same as self-care, like doing a hobby. If you're a group studier and you have a group that wants to study with you, but maybe one day you just want to go through the content alone or take a few hours to understand something by yourself, you're allowed to say no. It's okay to say no for a little bit and focus on yourself. It's okay to step away and make sure you have the time to meet your needs. And that's what I've been practicing. And I think that everybody going into something this stressful should be practicing that. It's important. It's not selfish. And something that I've been learning somewhat recently, and other people around me can attest to this, make sure to fill up your cup before you try to fill up someone else's, because you don't want to take on somebody else's problems when you can't and then drown along with them. It's not healthy. It's okay to be selfish once in a while. And I know I brought up the resources before, but truly another thing that really helped were the resources. I mean, before classes even started, I had meetings scheduled with the therapist and the learning enhancement people and some counselors just to make sure that I preemptively went and did things before everything got bad and I failed my first exam. Reaching out early and properly really helped because it made sure that I had the support system before I desperately needed it. And I thought it was a smart play, and I will die on that hill. I don't have to though. Nobody's arguing. Now this has mostly been what worked like with my mood and emotionally and kind of environmentally, but I do want to highlight just some things that worked academically as well because I've been getting some questions about it. I'm going to run through it very briefly because there's kind of a lot of specifics because my mind is very strange. So if you want me to make a longer video about it, just let me know and I'll think about it. Okay, number one, I'm doing the whole like triple pass method. I mean, they told us that in orientation, very common for a lot of schools. It's just like previewing the lecture before class, focusing during class, reviewing the lecture, doing the practice questions, seeing that stuff, you know, as often and as frequently as possible. And I think I mentioned it in like the note-taking video or something. It's like the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. It's just the more you see it and the more frequent you see something, the less you'll forget it and the more it retains. And I think that's very important when medical school, at least in my experience, is a lot less about memorization and more about actually understanding and being able to apply what you've learned. And that's very different from a lot of undergraduate stuff. I think I've been squinting like the whole time. There's a light right in my face. Can you guys see that? Light. Like this the whole time. My bad. And with previewing the lectures, honestly, sometimes I'm just skimming. Sometimes I don't have the energy to really like take notes and I'm just looking at what they're gonna talk about and I count that as my first pass because I'm priming sort of the knowledge for the next day. And I think that's important. Sometimes I'll go more in depth. It really depends on how I'm feeling. I've been very exhausted recently, but just before class, I will look at the slides at least. Another thing that sounds really simple, but is actually very difficult, is that during lecture, I'm as hyper-focused as possible, like as focused as can be. Nobody can take me out of it because it's important to be present and it's important to, you know, listen to what they're actually saying, because a lot of the times you'll hear, know this for the exam, or they'll repeat something twice, or they'll even say, I don't need you to know this for the exam. And when there is so much to remember and so much to learn, it's really good to know like what you don't need to know. That's very powerful. Medical school simply moves too fast to learn just every single detail about something. So I try my hardest to just be there because they're giving me their time. I'm going to give them my time. And it helps. I mean, it helps when I'm reviewing to know exactly what I need to know and what I don't need to know. Another general thing I do is that I write things out a lot. I don't tend to highlight or make flashcards because I've noticed that some of the later lectures will connect to some of the older ones, and if I can write that out and find the connections back to the older ones and make all those associations, it really helps in sort of passively reviewing a little bit of the earlier stuff while I'm learning the later stuff. It sounds convoluted. It's not. It kind of makes sense to me. I don't know how to explain it in words. I just, maybe I'll show you one day. I don't know. I guess a good example is like if one of the earlier lectures is about metabolism somewhere and one of the later ones is about diseases and metabolic diseases, every time I get to like an enzyme that I know from the earlier one, I'll just make sure to write it out, what pathway it's in, what disease it's involved in, the symptoms, so that every single time I see it, I write the information for multiple lectures. The last tip I have is something that I've talked to a lot of like fellow students about, And it seems like I'm the only one doing it, so maybe it's my idea. I doubt it, but maybe it is. And that's just, I don't study for practice questions. At my school, the practice questions are normally posted like the day of the lecture, if not the day after. And it just helps me, like, if I go through it that evening after I've attended lecture and after I've previewed it, or maybe the day after if I want to wait a little longer, because it helps me narrow down what I do know and what I don't know. For example, there was a lecture where I came home, I didn't really study, and I didn't think I had a solid understanding of it yet, but I scored like a 16 or 18 out of 20 on the practice questions, and that just helped me realize, like, I don't need to spend too much extra time on this. I can find my weak points and just focus on that and then generally review, but I don't need to do a deep dive on something when I'm getting most of the practice questions right. And I think anything like that that you can find that helps you save time is very important, because we have a limited amount of time and time does not stop when we need it to. There are a lot of other like mini details that really help me academically, but this video is more of a general overview and just like a rant to see how I'm doing and checking in. If you want a longer video, let me know. But on to my last point, sleep. Yes, it's cliche, but sleep was my one non-negotiable in the past 2 weeks. I went to bed at the same time-ish, within the same hour, every single night. Did I say every single night twice? I went to bed around the same time every single night to make sure that I not only absorbed the information, but I wasn't exhausted for the next day. Your non-negotiable can be whatever you want. Mine was sleep. A lot of common ones are diet and exercise. It can be a hobby like reading a chapter of a book or doing something to make sure you don't lose, yourself and your passion in your hobbies. Whatever your non-negotiable is, please stick to it. Mine was sleep, because I think sleep is very important for learning and getting everything in your long-term memory, but also rest, relaxation, and just building everything you need for the next day. I'm not really a caffeine person. I don't ever drink caffeine for energy. I know I said I was into coffee, but that's more like a therapeutic thing, something I just enjoy because I find it fun to make different lattes and drinks. So I don't ever do like 7 shots of espresso or 3 caffeinated drinks and energy drinks a day. So sleep for me is very important to make sure that I'm not exhausted. And even with that being said, I'm kind of still tired all the time because there's just so much going on. But yeah, I just want to make sure that I can function throughout the day, and sleep is just my number one. Okay, so that were the things that like worked for me. Now the things that didn't work so well. So the first thing that didn't work, I tried it for a little bit, were like the pre-made Anki decks. I'm not a huge fan of Anki. I think I mentioned that earlier or even in another video. I think Anki's really, really great for bulk memorization and, space repetition and all that. But when you need to know how certain enzymes affect downstream signaling of other molecules in 2 weeks, I don't think you really get the benefit of the space repetition. And I don't think Anki just works for me in general. I also found that some of the Anki decks, especially the pre-made ones, were a little too specific and were going over things that my lecturers weren't or weren't in their learning objectives. And again, you don't have time to memorize everything. You don't have time to learn things you don't need to know. So I would just focus on what your professors and your lecturers are telling you that you need to focus on. Because at least at my school, if it's not in the learning objectives, it can't really be tested on. And if it's not in the learning objectives, they don't find it important enough to tell you yet. This is also a weird one. There were certain words that stopped working for me, and I think those words were easy and hard. I had to shift my thinking very quickly and drastically from just eliminating the whole spectrum of how easy or hard something is, especially in medical school. It's difficult, and it's going to be difficult, and it should be difficult. And I didn't want to drive myself crazy with thinking, well, how easy versus difficult is this thing going to be? Because then I'm looking at my week and, well, everything was difficult. So I started thinking about it in terms of manageability and feasibility. How manageable was this lecture? How manageable is my workload? How manageable is my schedule right now? Because the truth is, it was a difficult lecture and my schedule was packed and stressing me out, and the workload is insane, but still manageable. And truly, I think that helped the most, especially just my mentality and staying positive, because I could come home from a lecture and think, that was the hardest lecture I've ever had in my life, and be so defeated. But then I could think, this is still manageable. I have a week to sort of learn this and, iron out the weak points and just see what I can do. So I guess in summary, maybe something was more difficult than I wanted it to be, but still more manageable than I thought it would be. And just by shifting that mindset, it's a lot easier to say, yeah, that's not as bad in terms of manageability than I thought it would be, instead of like, wow, that's a lot harder than I thought it would be. And I guess the theme of this video is that little tiny tweaks like that and just tweaks in my thinking really helped me a lot. Another thing that personally didn't work, but I think should work for most people, is group studying. I'm the type of person that likes studying around people and near people, just maybe not with people. And if there's too many people, I get distracted very easily. So maybe I just like studying around like one or two people. I actually think that group study has a really big benefit to it as well. I mean, I could count maybe 5 to 10 times this week where I would just partner up with some people and go through some pathways or some concepts and try and teach and learn and ask questions, because when one of us didn't know something and asked a question, it made the other people think, well, now I need to know that. How do I explain that to you? And that is very, very helpful. I think it's just when I'm like reviewing content maybe, and we're all learning at different speeds and paces, if we keep taking breaks to sort of ask questions or distract one another, it doesn't really work for me. So I preferred studying alone for the most part, and then having those dedicated moments where we would, ask questions, run through some practice questions, run through the pathways, and teach each other. Because again, I think teaching is the best way of learning. Shout out to my notes video. One more brief thing that did technically work but isn't sustainable, and that is the stress and the perfectionism. I said it before, but I was more stressed in the past 2 weeks than I probably ever have been in my life. And it was a much different stress than I'm used to. It wasn't like I have a lot to do. It was like this sort of impending doom. And I truly think that is the best way to describe it, just this impending doom. Like, the stress came less from the content and more from just the unknown. While every single person in my life, like parents, friends, students, they all told me like, you're ready for the exam, you're gonna be fine, there was still so much I didn't know. Like, well, what if I wasn't? What if the practice questions aren't as indicative of the exam as I'd like them to be? What happens if I'm spending all this time preparing, and I mean like literally working myself to death, and it's still not enough? I don't even know what I would tweak at that point. Like, if I'm giving it my all and I get some disappointing score, like, what do I even do? Do I drop out? Maybe med school isn't made for me. Maybe I'm not good enough for this. I mean, I just don't know. And I had thousands of thoughts like that every single day. I mean, my mind was just racing, especially on the days leading up to the exam and the morning right of. It was horrible. I mean, I felt horrible. I felt awful. And I can't tell you like just how relieved I was when I got to the exam and I saw the first few questions and I realized that I didn't know the content very well, that I just let out this huge, just like deep sigh, and like I let my shoulders relax and I was like, I'm gonna be okay. And I think stress can be very good. Nerves are good. They show you that you care, they get you alert, they get you ready. But the kind of stress I was under was eating me alive. I mean, it was like this self-hatred, self-destructive, self-deprecating, unsure of myself. Just, it was horrible. It was this very negative, overwhelming stress, and that just isn't sustainable. It truly was causing every single little thing in my life to become amplified by a million, and it just made everything so much worse. Luckily for me, I mean, there won't ever be a first medical school exam. Again, I already took it, and I'm not overconfident, I'm not gonna get complacent, but I am confident that I can put in the work and I can do what I want to do. And I think just having that baseline level of self-love and confidence, hopefully, I mean, only 2 weeks in, hopefully will help me a lot going forward. And even the week leading up to the exam, I mean, I kept trying to do positive affirmations and tell myself I would be okay and be confident without being too overconfident. And honestly, I couldn't find the balance. I have no advice for it right now. I'm too new into this. And honestly, it's the same with everything. When you don't know what something's gonna be like, you can prepare as much as you want for it. You can prepare as much as you want for high school, undergrad, medical school, an interview, a job. But until you get there and you put in the work and you do it, you have no idea what it's going to be like, and you can't prepare hard enough. And I think I'm used to that sort of stress, undergrad interviews, but this time with that first exam, It was just a little more overwhelming than I could handle. Now, the good news in all this is that I've probably matured and learned more about myself in the past few weeks than I have in the past 5 years. I've become much, much more open about my emotions, and I've allowed myself to feel a lot more. I'm basically crying every day, sometimes good, sometimes bad. I'm opening up to people in my life. I'm talking to my parents, and everybody's being very receiving and amazing about it. So thank you so much. I literally could not be able to get through it without every single one of you that's been supporting me. I've also connected with a lot of people and a lot of new friends just by being honest. I mean, sometimes I'll, downplay or amplify my emotions a little bit depending on the situation, but I'll always be honest and I'll never lie. We're all stressed, we're all human, we're all nervous for this new experience, and we don't know if we're going to be good enough. And by letting people know that I'm going through the same thing while still being positive and still, acting slightly energetically and giving them a smile, I think it's shown people that they can rely on me just a little bit. And in turn, I can rely on them, and just creating that supporting system and that network of people is just so important. And yeah, I've been trying to be there for myself and give as much of my energy and support to others that I can without neglecting myself. And I think that's important as well. The last week or two have been very difficult. I cannot lie. But it's been manageable. And I think part of me does love it. It's chaotic, it's stressful, but I'm just a little crazy enough to like it. And I do genuinely love everything about medical school so far. I love my campus. I love the people. I love the faculty. I even love the labs. I think the labs are a great way to sort of, stop thinking about the exams and stop thinking about the main bulk of the content and just really connect, like, why am I here? And that's something I didn't expect. Going into that first 2-hour lab right after, this 7 hours of lecture, I really thought I would hate it. I really thought I would be too tired to participate. But being able to sit there and finally understand like what I'm here for is just great, because I can go up to somebody and see, let me check your vital signs. Let me check, this range of motion. I can't go up to somebody and ask to see their citric acid cycle. And being able to, understand what I'm really working towards is very refreshing. And I found it very refreshing. So yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing this like self-love, self-care journey in what's currently the most stressful part of my life. I don't think I would make a very good physician if I didn't learn how to take care of myself first, because I don't want to be a hypocrite. I don't want to tell other people that they should be taking care of themselves without taking care of myself. Anyways, that was a lot. That felt like a lot. Was that a lot? I don't know. Even writing the script and like just talking to a camera has been very therapeutic and helpful. It's a little less structured. It's a little more of a rant than like advice. But if you did gain something or like that at all, please let me know. And please let me know if you want me to make a video on anything specific like I mentioned earlier. And let me know if this was fun or interesting at all. I do have another exam coming up in like less than 2 weeks. So maybe I'll make another check-in depending on how I do. That's like the end of the first block. So let's see if I pass the first block. I will, hopefully. We'll see. I'm gonna try my best. All right, thank you for watching. Remember, be safe, drink water, take care of yourself, and do like one thing today or tomorrow that brings you joy. Just one thing. You got it. Thank you.